When I first started this YouTube channel, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I knew I was opening myself up for scrutiny and criticism. I mean, it made me a little nervous at first. I didn't know what kind of videos I would make exactly. I mean, I knew they were going to be about woodworking and the use of my CNC machine and my little projects, but I didn't know if I was just going to make a video that had just music in the background, or if I was going to have my face on camera, or if I was going to do what I'm doing now and just kind of do a voiceover and narrate everything. And then when I come to that conclusion, I thought, well, what are they going to think about this South Alabama cornbread voice I've got? And I just wasn't sure. But man, it's been great. All the comments that I've got, 99.9% of y'all, man, have been so kind and supportive, and I can't thank each and every one of you enough for taking the time to watch my content and see what I got coming next. And I hope I keep your attention. I've actually got a few projects coming up that I really think you guys will appreciate. But like I said, for the most part, everything's been positive, but there are a few comments to make your eye roll a little bit. I got this particular comment from Derek, and I'm ashamed to say that at first, it actually bothered me a little bit, but only for about 5 seconds. Because after I thought about it, I had a warm and fuzzy feeling come over me. And that made me realize that Mr. Derek doesn't own a CNC machine and don't have a clue what it takes to put these projects together. I know that most of you that watch these videos, my channel, and others like it, you own a CNC machine and you know what it takes. It kills me that most people think that a CNC router is you take it out of a box, set it on a table, plug it in a computer and hit cut, and this beautiful project comes spitting out the other side of it. They don't know the hours that you sit behind a computer under your CAD and your CAM software, drawing everything up, getting the cuts just right. They don't realize that it's just a tool in your shop that allows you to do some things that I dare say most folks could not do by hand. So, with that, do we give the hammer credit when somebody builds a house? Do we give the table saw credit when somebody builds beautiful cabinets? No, we do not. We give credit to the creator and the maker. And let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. If you do this type of work with a CNC machine, you are indeed a creator and you're a maker. You are not just a machine operator. And don't you let anybody take that away from you. Can I get an amen? Okay. I'm going to step down off my soapbox now and be quiet. This is a really simple inlay project that you've seen dozens of times from other guys. There's not really a whole lot to it. There's a couple of things I want to point out, but I'm just going to keep my mouth shut for a few minutes till we get there. So please just sit back and enjoy the video. Here's one part of the video I wanted to talk about. Most of the time I'll do, when I surface the inlay off the top, I'll do it in 2 passes. And that's to keep stuff like this from happening. You can see at the top and at the bottom there, it chipped out. This ruined my night, but it's not a biggie. I'm going to show you how I fix that later. Not too bad. I went ahead and I took the second pass. I don't take it down into the wood. I actually zero to the surface of the board so the bit just skims the top. You can still see some residual glue there where it didn't go all the way into the wood. What you're seeing here is the groove I'm going to put into it. Normally when I do a juice groove, I have a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch ball nose bit that I'll cut, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch sometimes, 1/4 of an inch, depends on the board. But this is going to be 1 inch wide, and I actually cut this using a molding Toolpath in Vcarve Pro. And I used a 1/2 inch ball nose to cut this. And the reason why it's so wide and as deep as it is I actually looked up the specs and dimensions on a Ritz cracker online, and I made a circle, and this should hold a Ritz cracker just perfectly. So if you want to line up crackers around while you got cheese and other goodies in the center, that's what that's for. So I cut the groove, and now what you're seeing is I want to put an inlay down inside of the groove. But instead of cutting it all one piece, I didn't want to make a whole panel just to make it for that one little strip to go around. So I am cutting multiple cuts to get this done, so I can just use one little small inlay blank to get it all done. And I did the longest stretches first on the top, the bottom, and both sides. And that's what you're seeing me cut now. I'm also taking the time while I'm cutting that to fix this little problem. And what I did is I just sat down on Vcarve and created a separate toolpath and separate vectors to fix this. I'll make an inlay to fix the broken inlay. And I made one long at the top, one short at the bottom, just so I knew exactly which way the inlay would go in. The inlay that I'll be putting inside of the groove, I'm making out of sapelli. I like sapelli. It's probably the closest thing to cherry. It's a little cheaper than cherry. And when you're wanting something consistent as far as the grain goes, sapelli doesn't really have a prominent grain that stands out. It just ends up being a nice smooth color throughout the inlay. So if you've never tried it, try it. It cuts really well. Now after the inlay for what you see here, the top, the bottom, and the sides of that inlay, I just surfaced it down, not all the way, but just enough to get clearance, because my next cut is going to be in the corners. And I just surfaced those inlays down far enough to where the new inlays, the new plugs, when they went in, that the previous ones wouldn't interfere. Now, if you're curious how I did this inlay within the groove, my start depth is usually 0 when I do the pocket for an inlay. But in this particular situation, this groove was just around 1/4 of an or 1/8 of an inch deep. And so that was the start depth for the pocket of that inlay in the groove. It was about, I think, 0.15 inches deep on my start depth. And then I did a 1/4 inch flat depth. Once I put an inlay in the press to allow the glue dry, I generally let it sit for about 24 hours and let the glue get good and cured. But once I put these corners in, I just let it sit in there for 2 or 3 hours so they'd get a good hold. And then I pulled it back out and I put this little fix in, this little inlay, so I could get them both surfaced at the same time the next night. And instead of putting that in the press, I've got a couple of weights there. I just sit on top and then let the board continue to sit overnight until it was dry. And I guess this is for Derek. Only a real woodworker would use hand saws, right? Now this surface and pass are going to serve two functions. One is to obviously clear the inlay, but it's also just maybe 10 thousandths, a little deeper than zero, to clear the top of the wood to get it nice and flat again, because I'm going to actually rerun that molding toolpath that I run earlier to create the groove. And what this is going to do is clear out the inlay inside the groove. It was the only way I knew to do it, and it turned out decent. So my first pass was a clearing pass. I used a 1/4 inch end mill, and now I'll swap it out for the 1/2 inch ball nose, and I'll do the finishing pass on it, and it will recut the groove and clear the inlay and make it seamless. And now comes the favorite part of any project that I do, the sanding. I hate it. I hate sanding with a passion, but it is indeed a necessary evil. Once the sanding nightmare is over with, I sealed this particular board in Rubio's because it'll more than likely just end up being a serving tray and an ornament. But it's important to add, if it was going to be used as a functional cutting board, I'd use oil and wax so it would be food safe. You don't want to use Rubio's if you're going to cut food on it. They point that out on their website. And I'm really proud of how the inlay turned out in the groove. The last one I thought turned out really nice, my first one, but this one is just absolutely seamless. So I will be doing this again. I just like it. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for sitting through my rant at the beginning of the video, but it just needed to be said. Y'all stay tuned because I got big things coming. Y'all take care.